And so with that, we will go ahead and we'll begin with House File 55. And welcome to the committee, Representative Richardson. Since you are not on the committee, I will move that House File 55 be recommended to be re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law. And Representative Richardson, I understand that you do have an A2 author's amendment. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right, great. So there is the A2 amendment. And members, we will hear about the amendment, and I'll just remind folks, especially because we have a lot of new people on our committee, that it is custom and usage that we adopt author's amendments typically. That doesn't mean we won't discuss them. That is custom and usage here. Representative Richardson, would you like to go ahead and describe the A2 amendment, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. House File 55, as amended with A2, would establish and maintain an Office of Missing and Murdered Black Women and Girls. As a state and a nation, we're facing an unacceptable crisis of missing and murdered Black women and girls, and the data is simply horrific. When we started this legislative work in earnest in 2019, there were an estimated 64,000 to 75,000 missing Black women and girls in the United States. What that significant range told us is that we don't even know the full scope of this crisis. In 2020, more than 100,000 Black women and girls were reported missing. While Black women account for less than 15% of the U.S. population, we make up more than 1/3 of all missing person cases in 2020. Black girls are less likely to receive Amber Alerts and more likely to be classified as runaways. They're also less likely to receive media attention and coverage. It's also important to note that missing person cases involving Black women and girls stay open 4 times longer than their white peers. In addition, Black women and girls are at increased risk of harm. More than 20% are raped in their lifetime. In Minnesota, where Black women make up 7% of the population, we account for more than 40% of the reported domestic violence cases. And to be clear, that's reported cases. I would argue that figure is even higher when you take into account the cases that go unreported. Disparities also abound in human trafficking incidents. A 2-year study of human trafficking found that 40% of sex trafficking victims were identified as Black women. And what is very chilling is that convicted traffickers admittedly believe that trafficking Black women would land them less jail time if caught than trafficking white women. In Minnesota, Black women are almost 3 times more likely to die of homicide. Across the U.S., at least 4 Black women are murdered a day. This reflects, and those numbers are from 2021, and this reflects a 51% increase over 2019, the largest increase of any racial or gender group during that period. Furthermore, the number of unsolved homicide cases of Black women rose 89% in 2020 and 2021, compared with 2018 and 2019. Again, a far bigger increase than any other demographic group during this period. This is a crisis, and it doesn't have to be this way. Behind these numbers are real people and real families devastated. We must do better, we can do better, and Black women and girls deserve better. And the community agrees. This office has been vetted with community, with individuals with lived experience, grieving families, the faith community, organizations committed to the prevention of domestic violence and human trafficking, elected officials, law enforcement, medical examiners, county attorneys, county social service, youth programs, students, public health organizations, medical associations, education-related organizations, and a diverse group of nonprofits. We know we need to recognize and address the complexities that contribute to this crisis, including domestic violence, intimate partner violence, human trafficking, both labor and sexual exploitation, gang violence, the adultification and sexualization of Black girls, disparities in our foster care system and out-of-home placements, homelessness, including those young adults who are homeless because they age out of the foster care system. Systemic racism, poverty, mental health, substance use disorder, the role of media, the impacts of mistrust of law enforcement, and the disturbing trend of too many families feeling alone as they conduct their own investigations looking for answers. This bill would create an office that would go beyond tracking and analyzing the data and root causes of these disparities to include working with community to identify recommendations for strategies and solutions for prevention, supporting families on cold cases, providing grants to further the office's goals, and requiring the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to operate a missing person alert system, developing guidance to improve outcomes, and conducting much-needed public awareness campaigns. Today, Madam Speaker, I have several testifiers to me to share their support of the bill.
Okay, thank you, Representative Richardson. And I don't know that I technically moved the A2 amendment. Is there anything specific you'd like to add about the A2 amendment?
Nothing specific. It really sort of encompasses what I talked about in terms of creating the grant program and also requiring the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to operate a missing alert person program.
Thank you. Members, any discussion to the A2 amendment before we get, I know there's an amendment to the amendment, but any discussion to the A2 amendment before we get to that? All right, I don't see discussion about that. So before we vote on the A2, we do need to move to the amendment to the amendment. I believe that's the A3. And who would be offering the A3 amendment?
That would be me, Chair Moeller.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to go ahead, Representative Novotny, and explain the amendment to the amendment?
Thank you, Chair Moeller. It's a simple just addition of a couple sentences allowing the addition of police departments or government agencies to also be able to apply for grants for this specific training and enforcement techniques. It takes nothing away from the organizations that are already eligible for it, but thinking maybe there's some organizations that might want to work in connection with a government agency, maybe to get some training in. I think back to one of the last cases I worked as an investigator, tying into what Representative Richardson was saying, how black females are perceived in certain communities to be more vulnerable, or that their kidnapping or them going missing would be less likely to be investigated. And I can tell you that that was the perception of the perpetrator of that crime. Thankfully that those two girls were able to fight out and were not taken into the situation that he had planned for them. But I concur with her overall that that is a perception of the public. In dealing with the certain situations that these situations perceived, kind of tying into Representative Pinto's work in trafficking, it is something that agencies, if you're not working with it every day, you don't know. So if there is some way we can tie it in to do this more of a prevention and working with organizations in a positive way to have that contact and establish these liaisons with law enforcement agencies, if someone has that desire, then I think that'd be an option that we should pursue.
Great. To the amendment, Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a point of clarification, I don't see that government agencies overall are listed within the amendment. And I do see that this would add law enforcement agencies to be eligible for the grant program that has been established in the bill for community-based organizations. And I would just say that the recommendation around the community grants was also vetted with law enforcement. They've been at the table through the work of the task force on this as well. And the bill also talks about ways that law enforcement would be coordinating with the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and also with this office as well. And so I would recommend at this time a no vote, but happy to continue conversations to better understand what you're hoping to accomplish.
Thank you. Discussion to the amendment. Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to remind folks, and thank you, Representative Devani, for referencing anti-trafficking work. This office would be housed within the Office of Justice Programs. Also in that office is the funding for the sex trafficking investigation teams that we established several years ago. And in fact, actually, the office is hiring for coordinator of those. So the point is, the director of this office would actually have as a colleague somebody who's directing and connecting with law enforcement. So in terms of your goal for that kind of coordination connection, I actually think housing it within OJP really does address that. So I would also go with the author of the bill in terms of opposing the amendment, though I really appreciate the sentiment of it, but I think we can achieve it through where the office is housed at OJP. Thank you.
Further discussion to the amendment. Representative Frazier.
Happens all the time. No worries. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to Representative Devani, thank you for that, for raising that point, and Representative Richardson, thanks for bringing this bill. There is a House File 25 will be working its way through with some funding that I think will also address and speaking to law enforcement, having ability to apply for grants to help with investigatory processes around prevention. So I think that there will be some resources for that.
Further discussion to the amendment. Go back to the author of that, Representative Novotny.
Thank you, Chair Moeller. As I said, this doesn't lock the grant into being a law enforcement program. It just adds another option. I asked for your vote, and I request a roll call.
A roll call has been requested, and there's no further discussion on the amendment to the amendment. The clerk will take the roll.
Chair Moeller,
No.
Vice Chair Feist,
No.
GOP Lead Novotny,
Yes.
Representative Becker-Finn,
No.
Representative Curran,
No.
Representative Ingen,
Yes.
Representative Fraser,
No.
Representative Gressel,
Yes.
Representative Hudson,
Yes.
Representative Hewitt,
No.
Representative Mueller,
Mueller votes yes.
Representative Pinto,
No.
Representative Tapke,
No.
and Representative Whitty.
Yes.
There being 6 ayes and 8 nays, the motion does not prevail, and the amendment to the amendment is not adopted. Okay, moving on now to a discussion to the amendment. I think I left that open before the A2 amendment. I didn't see any discussion then, so we'll now take a vote on the A2 amendment. All those in favor of the A2 amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails, and the A2 amendment is adopted. All right, Representative Richardson, you gave a great overview of your bill. Are you ready to move on to testifiers at this point?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, House File 55 as amended is before us, and our first testifier today is Dr. Peter Hayden. Come on up. All right, if you can please state your name for the record and your title, and go ahead and begin your testimony. Welcome.
Sure. Welcome. My name is Dr. Peter Hayden. I'm the father of Jeffrey Hayden, a colleague of yours, former colleague of yours. And I'm also the father of Sydney Taylor, who's not with us anymore, Aaron Hayden, and my wife, Joyce Hayden. This morning, I thank you, Madam Chair and members, for giving me the opportunity to speak. Many of our colleagues behind me are women, and usually that's what happens is because the mom is so important in the family. So I'm glad, Representative Richardson, you asked me to speak as a male in a family, a man who raised his children, who all went to Wayzata High School, who all went to HBCUs or Mississippi State, Missouri University, Prairie View A&M. we tried to do the right thing, my family. As I said, my son was a former colleague of yours. All my girls are graduates from college. I was in the house. All those stereotypes I don't bring with me. But where my support is, from my sisters behind me, is that it doesn't matter when someone has a gun, and that's how they define their spirituality, they define their masculinity. It doesn't matter. So I'm sitting here. Taylor goes to Prairie View A&M. She falls in love with a school in Texas, decides to move, come back home for a minute. And when she leaves, the next person I have knocking on my door are people who are there to serve and protect, telling me I need to call this number because, and I'm asking, what is the issue? And it says, you are Taylor Hayden's dad? I said, yeah. And by then I knew I had lost my child. This House file must be passed. And I don't care how y'all decide to do it. It must be passed because we can't have more Taylor Haydens and the people that are going to sit up here to talk with you. We can't have it, however way we work it. I want you to understand that was not just Taylor, not just the Hayden family, but all the families that's behind me, and some of you have suffered these type of incidents. So I definitely know you're sitting here because you care for the bill. However way you work it out, do it right and do it on behalf of not just Taylor Hayden, but all the young men, young women who, and moms who are suffering because of this incident. I know I had 3 minutes. I'm gonna stay within my 3 minutes. I appreciate you. I run Turning Point. It's a chemical health, mental health program. I just celebrated my 50th year of sobriety. When you have someone taken from you like my daughter, I have some people say, if you get high, man, I can understand it. If you don't pass this bill, I won't understand it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hayden, and our sympathies for your loss. We appreciate you being here today. And members, what we'll do is we'll have testimony from all the testifiers first before we open it up for questions. The next testifier is Lakeisha Lee. Come on forward. And then on deck, we'll have Dr. Verna Price after Lakeisha Lee. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name and go ahead and begin with your testimony.
Thank you very much. My name is Lakeisha Lee. I am an advocate, and I very much appreciate all of you here today. I work with Black women and girls all over the Twin Cities, but I also have had the unfortunate circumstances just like Dr. Hayden. My sister was murdered in 2013. My sister is Brittany of Brittany's Place on the east side of St. Paul, right here in the Twin Cities. When my sister was killed, on the front page of every single newspaper in the city of St. Paul was her picture. And right underneath it, it said prostitute. Our family had to wake up to that with news at our door and media. My sister worked for the city of St. Paul, working with students in the North End neighborhood every day at Rec Check. My sister was an amazing caretaker. My sister was a part of the community. She was not a prostitute. She was a victim. Our Black women and girls need this. Our community needs this, all of our communities. This is something that isn't going to change no matter if my family is here testifying or a different family. The stories will be the same. We're still here doing the work, showing up and asking for the assistance and the help. This past year, I was able to chair the task force for the state working on a report for legislature to talk about the causes of this. I volunteered to re-traumatize myself willingly, and I do it all over again. Just to be here today to let you guys know how important this is. We need a place to be able to access resources. Everyone needs a place to be able to figure this out, come together. We have to figure this out together. And this office will be able to assist with that. This is just the first step. We're all working together as a community. There's women behind me that have continued to support me through all the ups and downs that have continued to happen as I continue to stand up, show up, and fight for Black women and girls, not even just here for Minnesota, but we're a blueprint for the nation. And thank you guys for being part of that. Thank you guys for allowing me to speak with you today.
Thanks also for your testimony and our sympathies for your loss. And thank you for being here for Brittany and all the other women and girls. We really appreciate it. All right, so Dr. Verna Price is next, and then on deck we'll have Suwana Kirkland. Welcome to the committee, Dr. Price. And you can go ahead and state your name and please introduce yourself and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, committee. Thank you so much for having all of us here. This is a big deal for us. And I can tell you, it's hard to just, even not just bawl, like weep. You know, like in the Old Testament, they would just tear their clothes and weep. It was so hard. That's what we're talking about. And what we're asking for you is simply a structured collective response. So that my mom, who calls me, oh, my name is Dr. Verna Price, Dr. Verna Cornelia Price. And I'm the author of a little purple book, and it's called The Power of People, 4 Kinds of People Who Can Change Your Life. When North High called me in 2005, I just left the University of Minnesota as a professor there and written my first book. And my first book simply says there's 4 kinds of people in your life: adders, subtractors, multipliers, and dividers. And learn how to be an adder, stay away from subtractors, run from dividers, and hope you have a multiplier. North High School called me and said, Dr. Verna, would you please come and simply be a positive role model to our girls? That was the call. It was a community call. Today, the community is calling you all. They're calling you to make a decision. And I said yes to my community. I didn't know what I was getting into. That yes ended up with me creating a program called Girls Taking Action. It used to be Girls in Action. And you all have supported that program at a state level. I'm very thankful for that. We have many of our Girls Taking Action women leaders behind me. We've impacted over 5,000 girls in Minnesota. And those girls have learned how to be adders and how to spot subtractors. When my mom called me and said, my daughter is missing, Dr. Verna, she had nowhere to go. And the police was not answering her call. But because we had a wraparound, what I would say, response to our girls, those lead mentors back there, they have a phone number for the mamas. They have a phone number for the girls. They know who the girls are talking to. They know who the new boyfriend is or not. They know, and now we have social media in the mix, right? They're checking with the girls to see who you talking to at 2 o'clock in the morning in some little social media chat room, right? So we actually were able to reach for that girl because we knew her. As a collective community response, we knew her. And that's really what it's going to take for this thing, for us to really make sure that we're protecting our Black girls. That's what I'm asking you. This is what this office does. It says to our Black girls who, unfortunately, since slavery times, since Black women were brought here on slave ships, they have been seen as expendable. And we are not. We matter. And I want the state to show that we matter. Give us an office. Give us the resources we need so that my mom, when she calls me, I can say, oh no, I got a place for you to go. Call such and such and such and such. I didn't have that. So we just ended up tracking the girl. I ended up in Walmart in the middle of the night, with her going to Walmart and sneaking away and running to my car and really putting my own self in danger to get her safely back home. But this office gives us a structured, strategic response to this so that community organizations like ourselves, when this happens, we have a place to go, we have someone to call, and we have what's called legitimacy and credibility behind us. Because sometimes the officers don't believe us, right? And as a result, we just don't get the support. So what am I asking you to do, committee? I'm asking you to support this office. Get us an office. Let's get this work done for our girls. Let's show our Black girls and women that they matter in this state. Thank you so much for listening to me and continuing to do your good work. Thank you, Representative Richardson, for asking me to come.
Thank you for your testimony and for the important work you do. We appreciate that you're here today. Next, we have Suwana Kirkland, and then on deck we'll have Artika Roller. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Kirkland. If you can state your name and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Molnar, and members of the Public Safety Committee. My name is Suwana Kirkland. I am currently the National Vice Chair for the National Black Police Association, as well as the past president for the Minnesota chapter. I am also the director for Dakota County Community Corrections. I want to first start off, I want to read the letter that the National Black Police Association wrote in support of this office, and then I'll have very brief remarks myself. Dear Chair Molnar and members of the Public Safety Committee, the National Black Police Association Minnesota chapter is writing regarding House File 55 to support the development of a missing and murdered Black women and girls office. NBPA Minnesota is a nonprofit law enforcement affinity association representing several agencies, cities, counties throughout the state of Minnesota. It is our goal to increase representation and visibility of Black law enforcement in the community through service and relationship-based policing. NBPA Minnesota would not be successful without the support of the communities we all serve. Nationally, there are estimates that between 64,000 and 75,000 Black women and girls are missing. Data shows that Black women are twice as likely to be victims of homicide. As well as the data also shows that cases involving missing and Black women and girls stay open 4 times longer than others. There's a crisis, and this office is an important step forward to work to prevent incidents of violence, ensure more resources for cold cases, improve public safety. We respectfully ask members to support House File 55. Thank you for considering our letter of support. Respectfully, Officer Brad Chin, who is the president of the National Black Police Officer Association Minnesota chapter. I've been in law enforcement for 19 years as an officer and as a leader. I have seen an increase in incidents of violence within our communities for Black women and girls, and a decrease in resources and services and dedicated efforts and supports to help solve these crimes. I've seen that. I am the mother of 2 Black, amazing young women. I would hate to get that knock at the door that many of our community members, our mothers and our fathers, have received regarding their children. I would hate to see my sister or my aunt or a family member in the media, front page, missing. This is vital. This is crucial. Our women, our community, we need an office, a place to go where there are resources, adequate resources and support for our women and girls. It must happen, and it must happen now. Throughout my work, I go across this country and I talk about the great work that Minnesota has done the great work that we are charged with. This is a model that can be replicated and implemented across this country. Minnesota must lead in this space. It must lead now. This is our opportunity, and this is our time. My sisters and brothers behind me, and there are thousands that have stories just like ours. Law enforcement, the National Black Police Association is committed. This is, I believe, my third time testifying, and I'll come back again, and again, as long as we need to get this across. It's imperative, it's critical, and it must happen. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony and the important work you do. And also a reminder that the packet is full of letters of support. So members, please make sure to read all the letters that have come in support of this important bill. Thank you. And then next we have Artika Roller. Welcome to the committee. If you can introduce yourself and tell us where you work and go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Mueller and committee members and Representative Richardson. My name is Artika Roller. I am the Executive Director of the Minnesota Coalition Against Sexual Assault, also known as MNCASA. MNCASA is a statewide coalition representing more than 60 programs across the state of Minnesota, providing technical assistance, support, and training to those programs that are doing wonderful work with our victims and survivors. They are our frontline advocates. In my 20-year career, I have been devoted to addressing sex trafficking, domestic violence, sexual assault, and centering the needs of victims and survivors. During my career, I have had the opportunity to see the best of people, and unfortunately, I have also had the opportunity to see the worst of people. I have provided services, and unfortunately, I have lost many of the women and girls that we have worked with to violence and to murder. And my task was to support their families after that horrible incident occurred. The findings of the MMAAW report confirms the harsh truth, one that African American communities in Minnesota have known for a long time. Violence against Black women and girls in our state is in an undeniable crisis that needs to be addressed. This epidemic is the product of over 400 years of targeted violence, erasure, and crimes against Black women and girls, and including systematic barriers to justice. The report revealed that Black women and girls in Minnesota are far more likely to experience violence than their peers. Yet when they turn to our systems that claim to offer support and promote justice, they are often disbelieved, stereotyped, and subjected to additional trauma. This is unacceptable. We have the power to disrupt violence against African American women and girls by establishing and funding a standalone office for the murdered and missing African American women that would also partner with our murdered and missing Indigenous relative office, but would be two separate offices to support the distinct needs of both of our communities. This office will improve outcomes, provide support for Black women and girls in Minnesota and their family. Today, we have the opportunity to do more than just simply acknowledge that there is a crisis, but we have an opportunity to do something. The other thing that we're asking you to do in this process is that we can listen and should listen and also take heed to the wisdom of Black women and girls. They are the ones that actually worked on this report, and we would like to, again, not only listen, but take heed to their wisdom and knowledge. The justice and safety and healing for African American women and girls is long overdue, and we urge you to vote yes for House File 55. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you for your testimony and also for the important work that you do. I'm sure we'll be seeing you again throughout the session.
Yes.
Thank you. And we do have one member of the public who signed up to testify. That's Gloria Perez. So please come to the table. Welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself, state your title, and you can begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Mueller and members of the committee. My name is Gloria Perez. I'm the president and CEO of the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House File 55. For 40 years, the Women's Foundation has invested more than $45 million in organizations across the state, hearing from our communities the realities that women and girls face and advancing policies that advocate for them. We have long funded work in Minnesota to make it a safer place for women and girls and have supported the passage of important bills such as Minnesota's Safe Harbor Law, the Office of Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives, and the Missing and Murdered Black Women's Task Force. Our research with the Center on Women, Gender, and Public Policy at the University of Minnesota's Humphrey School, published last year, shows that gender-based violence from sex trafficking to domestic abuse remains a significant problem in Minnesota. The impact is disproportionately on Black and Indigenous women and women of color. Nationally, Black women have the highest rates of death due to homicide, followed by Native American women. In Minnesota, Black women are murdered at a rate of 2.7 times higher than white women. To find solutions that change systems so that more Black women and girls can be safe and well, we need to listen to the lived experience of women. When we center their experiences and solutions, we can serve the families experiencing the greatest harms. As a result of the leadership of the Missing and Murdered African American Women's Task Force and the work of researchers, community members, Department of Public Safety staff, and legislators, we know more about this epidemic in Minnesota than ever before. The report issued by the task force provides thorough research and, importantly, stories of family members, survivors, and communities who have been impacted directly by the violent death of a loved one or who are still searching for vindication. The report's recommendations are grounded in their voices and experiences. It could not be more important for Minnesota to take the step and establish an office to support families, coordinate investigations, identify connections between trafficking and other crimes, and ultimately change the systems that prevent the violence so that Black women and girls can thrive in Minnesota. I want to thank Representative Richardson for her vision and persistent leadership on this issue. The Women's Foundation urges the legislature to move quickly to establish this office. There is no time to waste in making Minnesota a place that honors and respects the safety and whole lives of Black women and girls. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any other members of the public who wish to testify? Right. Welcome. Please come on up, introduce yourself for the record, and begin your testimony.
My name is Devon Muhammad. I work for Turning Point, Inc. in North Minneapolis. And I have a sister who's a survivor of violence, and I came with Dr. Peter Hayden. I wasn't here to testify or nothing, but when I heard the bill, I just was compounded to just say something. And so I had a sister who was almost murdered in 1981 by Paul Stefani. And this guy was released out of prison. He was released. The FBI knew that they were looking for him, right? And they lost contact of him when he had caught up with my sister and almost killed her. Now, my sister, the reason I wanted to speak because my sister has never recovered from that. And she still has. The reason I'm saying that is because when, there wasn't no resources for her. She had treatment, didn't work, none, just didn't have the resources at the time, right? And so every time, so she called me one night, like about 3 months ago, called me. That's another reason I wanted to say something, because she's still traumatized by this guy, right? After over 30 years, almost 40 years. And so what came on the TV was this documentary saying, Well, he runs into another former victim after he killed 3 or 4 Native women, right? He runs into another type of victim, which insinuated that my sister was a street person, that she was a killer also, you know? And so she's always, every time she hears this thing can pop up on the TV at any time, and she'll call me crying. I just heard his voice. And so I wanted to share that it's important that law enforcement, you know, stick to their guns when they're looking for people, for especially with women of color, because we are underserved, right? And so I just think that this bill should get passed, and I wanted to share my opinion. And I hope I'm okay with my boss back here. And thank you very much. Again, my name is Divine Muhammad. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad.
Madam Chairman, thank you.
Yes, your boss is smiling and nodding, so I think you're good. But we really do appreciate you being here, and what a great brother you are to your sister for being here on her behalf. So thank you. Seeing no other testifiers, we are going to go ahead and move to member discussion of the bill. Anybody, any comments from members? All right. What's that? Oh, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I am happy to be a co-author of this bill. And I did want to encourage members, if they haven't looked at the report where this recommendation came from, that you go and actually look at that report. It's really well put together. And the thing about the report that really struck out to me is, you know, ideally we prevent these bad things from happening to people in the first place, and the connection to providing both temporary and long-term safe housing for people and how that all ties together. You know, it's really easy for folks to agree, like, yes, we need to prevent these things from happening, but then sometimes connecting the dots with actually funding all those pieces that add up to preventing those things is harder for folks. And so I just wanted to make that connection, and also just encourage the public and other members of the committee to go actually look at that report and read through all of the recommendations, not just the recommendation that we start this office. But thank you, Chair Richardson, for being a champion for this issue. It's, I know it means a lot to our community as a Native person that the MMIWR office was established, and it has made a difference for folks now. And so I think it's really important that we continue that work and extend those good things to other parts of the community that need us to lift them up. So thank you.
All right, closing comments, Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there somebody else over here that wanted to speak? Representative Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I ask a question of Representative Richardson?
You may.
I have a question about the scope of the office. So obviously we've been focusing on Black women, Black girls. There's also, I'm sure you would agree, issues with Black men, Black boys. There was recently a Star Tribune article that discussed the 135 homicides that occurred in Minneapolis and St. Paul during the year 2021. And if you look at the breakdown of those cases, 76% of them were male. I'm sure there's a reason for the specific focus of this office, but I'd like to know what that reason is.
Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Hudson, for the question. What we know right now in terms of the rising rates of this crisis, we are seeing that murder rates are increasing faster among Black women when compared to other races and other genders. We also understand that cold cases are increasing as well. I understand that as we look at this issue and the complexities of it around gender, there are also an abundant amount of needs that need to be addressed for Black men and Black boys, and happy to work with you on a bill that could really look at addressing that crisis as well. So thank you for your interest and support of that.
Any follow-up?
No, thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, Representative Richardson, closing comments.
Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no,
Not
no.
giving people enough. It's different in a Zoom room when the hands just pop up. You have to have a different skill set here. Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Richardson, thank you for bringing this bill. I think it came through last time. We passed it off the floor before, but thank you for bringing it back, and I'm hoping we can get this done quickly. As the father of 3 daughters, this is something that is, it hits close to home for me. And I also have a ton of aunts growing up that are still back in Illinois, back in Chicago. And for me, I've had conversations with them about how, in many occasions, they feel unsafe in certain situations, particularly at night when they're traveling home from work. And part of the fear is that if something would happen to them, that there wouldn't be a priority on ensuring that whatever happened would be resolved or that someone would be held accountable. And I talk a lot about prevention and intervention, and this office is geared directly toward that. Many of the bills I carried have been about putting resources to those efforts, which I think when we talk about any uptick in crimes or any unsafe communities, we often focus on one tool. There are alternatives. There are multiple tools that we can use to prevent these things from happening. So I'm glad you brought this bill. I'm looking forward to voting yes on this. I am a proud co-author of it, so I'm looking forward to supporting it. And Representative, thank you for bringing up the issue about the other issues that are happening in terms of the crimes that are happening in communities at a disproportionate rate for Black men. And I'm glad you brought that up because I will look forward to you for working on solutions to that as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Representative Grossell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the author, the amended version of the bill requires the BCA to operate a missing persons alert program and places additional crime alert network requirements on the BCA. And so I'm looking at the fiscal note, and I'm wondering, have you requested an updated fiscal note with the new responsibilities that are going to be placed on the BCA?
Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Grossell. I worked very closely with the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the Office of Justice Program on the amendment. The Minnesota Crime Alert Network is a system that is already established and in play, and it's already being used for missing persons alerts. And there are requirements that are already in state statute that we're building on, including around Brandon's law. So the infrastructure is already in place.
Any follow-up, Representative Grossell? Okay, one last pause here. I'm looking around. All right, I think now, Representative Richardson, we can have your closing comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members, for the discussion as well. Madam Chair, I appreciate you recognizing the urgency of this issue and hearing this bill early in session and prioritizing this hearing, because since we started work here at the Capitol back in 2019 around this issue, the crisis has only deepened and it's worsened. And I also just want to lift up the reality that because this is not the first time that we are sitting before a committee asking for an office, what it takes for the folks sitting behind me who have experienced significant trauma to return time and time again to relive that trauma. It's not okay. And they deserve better, and our communities deserve better. Everyone deserves equal access to justice, and everyone deserves that to have the answers and accountability. A dedicated response is long overdue, and I ask that members support this bill.
Thank you, Representative Richardson. I will renew my motion that House File 55 as amended be recommended to be re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails. Thanks again to all our testifiers today.
Thank
We
you, Madam
appreciate
Chair.
it.